Hello, everyone. We did our replication project on using goal setting, performance feedback, and to increase our daily running distance, which was done by Wack, Crossland, and Miltonberger. My name is Sandy Awad, and I currently live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This is my second year in BSU, and I have been ABA for 3 years.
My name is Caitlin Burns. I'm from Montgomery, Alabama. I'm currently on my second semester here at BSU. And I grew up with a little brother who has autism, so I've been around for a while with dealing with ABA and all different kinds of therapies.
My name is Morgan Starkey, and I am from Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm in my third semester here in the program, and I have worked as an RBT for the last 2 years.
My name is Tiffany Thomas. I am from Aurora, Illinois. This is my third semester at BSU, and I'm also have my master's in social work, and I've been a school social worker for the past 2 years.
Hi everyone, my name is Jamie Varecka. I am from Madison, Wisconsin. This is my second semester at BSU, and currently I'm a behavioral treatment therapist at a licensed autism center, which I've been working at for the past 4 years.
So to start, I'm going to do a little introduction. The CDC recommends that individuals engage in at least 30 minutes of physical activity a day. And physical activity is anything that uses energy to move the body. Types of these activities include running, walking, biking, swimming, basketball, tennis, etc. They recommend this because there are so many benefits of physical activity. Some of these include weight control, muscle strength, better sleep, improved cardiovascular health, and life extension. It also helps by combating health conditions and diseases such as heart disease, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and arthritis. Also, physical activity not only helps our physical bodies, but it plays a big part of our emotional health. Exercise stimulates chemicals in our brain that help keep us happier, relaxed, and less anxious. Despite these benefits, a study by Bibicoa, Ransom, and Taylor found that 50% of college students do not meet the recommended amount of physical activity. And as a group, we decided to replicate this study because we all wanted to increase our physical activity and more specifically, our running distances. So the purpose of this study was to increase running distance by goal setting and feedback.
So I'm going to talk just a little bit about goal setting, which is the intervention that we used and was used in our original study. So according to Brobst Ward, goal setting provides an explicit criterion as opposed to saying just do your best. So with goal setting, specific strategies are implemented to reach a specific target rather than a broad statement of attempt. Locke and Latham founded the goal setting theory. So that theory that was originally founded was based on the simplest of introspective observations, namely that conscious human behavior is more likely to occur, conscious human behavior, there we go. In layman's terms, this means that specific types of behaviors are more likely to occur if someone does them with a purpose rather than doing them just absent-mindedly without thinking about it. But in summary, goal setting theory says the simplest and most direct motivational explanation of why some people perform better than other people is because they have different performance goals. In Locke and Latham's theory, everyone has the same ability level. The only difference in performance is their motivation towards a specific goal. So goal setting has been used across a lot of different settings with a lot of different people, which is why we thought it would be a good idea for us. One study that we found focused on increasing fitness activities through the use of a self-monitoring fitness tracking app. The user would input goals into the app and receive goal-setting text message reminders sporadically while using it. According to Liu and Willoughby, the study demonstrates the usefulness of goal-setting text reminders, adding to the existing literature on the effectiveness of theory-grounded text message interventions. This study also highlights the positive impact of goal-setting text messages reminders on individual self-efficacy, awareness of personal goals, and motivation to change health behaviors. So that was just one example of a study that we use goal setting to increase physical activity. Another research study completed by Mellu, Hanton, and O'Brien focused on the effects of goal setting in relationship to rugby performance. So this study found that for all participants that were involved in this study, performance following the intervention showed the desired change in behavior. So it was successful in changing their fitness behavior. Moreover, 100% of rugby players showed increased performance, and all but one participant performed at or above their goal. A third study involved football players and their performance in practice as well as during their games. According to Ward and Carnes, during baseline, all of the target players failed to achieve greater than 80% correct performances on reads, drops, and tackles, which is what they were monitoring through the research, during practice, and showed similar performances during their games. During the intervention and goal setting, the players established and met goals that equaled or exceeded 90% of correct performance. So the study that we chose to replicate involved goal setting to increase distance ran by participants. In the study, goals were set weekly and recorded on a Google document shared among everybody in the group. Every week, each participant's distance was recorded on this shared Google document. Results were highlighted in red if the participant did not meet their goal, and green if the participant did meet their goal. Prior to the intervention, baseline data was taken for 2 weeks to see where we were at prior to the interventions. Findings will be discussed later in the presentation.
Methods. So 5 females, ages ranging from 22 to 26 years old, participated in the study. All participants were master level students. They were all moderately active and healthy enough to run at least 3 times a week. The setting was any indoor facility with a treadmill available, such as gym or at home. The materials used were Apple Watch workout app, treadmill, Google spreadsheet in which we all shared our data, and a computer to access the Google spreadsheet. So we use a multiple baseline design with an embedded changing criterion on design for intervention 2 to assess the effects of goal setting and performance feedback for each participant. During baseline, participants wore their Apple Watch during the runs, but they didn't set any short-term or long-term goals. The baseline was collected for 2 weeks. For the sake of this project, short-term goal was distance participants aimed to run weekly. Long-term goals were distance participants aimed to run in a single running episode. There were 2 treatment phases, intervention 1 and intervention 2. During intervention 1, each participant set a long-term goal and a short-term goal. If the participant did not meet their goals, she could lower or stay at the goal for the next week. If the participant fails to meet their goals after intervention 1, short-term goals will be set weekly rather than daily. This intervention only required running 2 times a week.
In the following study, each participant was introduced to what measuring tool we were going to be using for the following study. So we each decided that everybody had an Apple Watch, so this would be our measuring tool. The definition that best described for this study is we run at a certain pace, which is greater than 4 miles per hour, on a treadmill, which is inside or in a home or a gym. This study is followed each participant, and each participant had to create a weekly goal, and each participant's goal was different. For our data collection, we went into our app and we each shared our individual settings with one another, which included all of our data, which we did throughout the runs. Our group also made a folder inside of our Google Docs with a chart layout to fill in each person for the following week. This is the data sheet we used during our intervention. We each made a short-term goal to meet each week before the week started, and then started each week off by trying to meet those goals. Each week, we tried to increase our mileage to try to become more active. If we did not meet our goals for that week, we tended to keep the same or lower it to make sure that we can make it. If this continued, we went to intervention 2, which allowed us to only run twice a week and meet our goals until the following study. Everyone had separate goals each week, so we all increased our mileage set differently than one another. To make sure that everybody was our treatment fidelity, we want to make sure that everybody was okay with this. So in this sheet, this is a green, so it means that we met our goals, and this is our red, which is showing that we did not meet our goals. So if you can look at the following study, we see that this is our week 1 of our short-term goals, and we each had our own. And then Morgan had met hers instead of Jamie and Tiffany, and Sandy and I did not meet our goals. So after this week, we ended up having to go to intervention 2 because we were not able to reach the goals. So for our IOA, each participant shared their individual running goals for the rest of the group via Apple Watch Workout. So this is the workout app, what it looks like or tends to look like. It shows, if you like swipe over, it'll show how many miles they ran, what their pace was, etc. So it was able to keep both of us or all of us on track with everything. So we were able to be accountable for this. So we maintained a checklist so that we could all be able to follow, this plan that we had created. So the following checklist shows that we review and set short-term running goals for the following week. We then set our Apple Watch to indoor to make sure that we are not using the outdoor setting. In the Apple Watch, there's multiple settings that you can use. So we needed to make sure that we were in indoor run mode. Otherwise, this would mess up our runs. We then started our workout when we began running and ended it when we finished. So we recorded our distance. Our distance was shared in our app. And then we also had to go into our Google document and share it via manual. So when we go in, we tended to just wait to the end of the week to upload all of the data into the Google spreadsheet. So we didn't have to go in each time we ran for the following week to update that data. So when we updated our system, back here, we updated it in the following week, and then we put in green or red to show whether we met or missed goals. This is just a clip of our data sheets.
So we will now each go over each of our own results and share our graph.
Okay, so overall, I was able to increase my running distance by using goal setting and feedback. My baseline, I was at around 0.33 miles a week average, which then increased to 0.88 miles a week by the end of the study. For intervention 1, I was at around 0.75 miles. That's the average, and then which increased to about a mile a week by the end of intervention 2.
So this is my graph. I ended up having to go into intervention 2 because I was not able to stay in intervention 1, which means I did not meet my goals each week. So this was my baseline, and this is my intervention 1. In the beginning of the study, each of us set a long-term goal that we wanted to meet by the end of the study. I ended up reaching my long-term goal in the beginning of, I think it was the 2nd week. Although I did meet my long-term goal, I did not reach my goals throughout the rest of the intervention, which was why I had to go to intervention 2. So performance feedback on my baseline, I was at 3.25. And when we finished the study, I averaged out at 3.80. So even though I did not continue through intervention 1 and intervention 2, I was still able to increase each week. I was still able to increase my data as a whole, which does prove that this study does work. So from a 3.25 to 3.8, I showed that I could increase throughout.
All right, so my very first run, I ran 1 mile, and I had a pretty steady baseline of 0.95 miles a session. And this is the distance of my usual run before this, so it had a pretty good representation. And so once the intervention started, I increased my distance ran during each session, and I achieved 100% of my goals that I set. And I ended my intervention with a 3.8-mile run and an intervention mean of about 2.8 miles. And since I made all of my goals, I continued in intervention 1 and I did not have to go to intervention 2.
So my baseline average was 0.58 miles. I did not run before this, and oh, I hear myself echoing. My intervention average was 2.78 miles. So goal setting and having the feedback and being aware that I had to post all of my distances on a Google document to share definitely helped me increase my running distance.
During my baseline, I was able to run a total of 6 times for an average of 1.6 miles. During the intervention, I was able to reach my goal 100% of the time with an average of 2.9 miles. I finished this study running 4.14 miles. As you can see on my graph, I had, during the 22 sessions, there was a steady increase in my running distance. Therefore, goal setting and performance feedback helped my run.
Now, just to summarize the results of our study, Sandy went from an average of 0.33 miles during baseline to an average of 0.88 miles during intervention. Caitlin went from an average of 3.25 miles during baseline to an average of 3.8 miles during intervention. Morgan went from an average of 0.95 miles during baseline to an average of 2.8 miles during the intervention. Tiffany went from an average of 0.58 miles during baseline to an average of 2.78 during intervention. And finally, Jamie went from an average of 1.62 miles during baseline to an average of 2.9 miles during intervention. And 2 of the participants, Morgan and Jamie, reached their daily running goal 100% of the time, and 1 participant, who's Caitlin, reached their long-term running goal.
Again, in conclusion, restating what Morgan just did, all participants did increase their average running distance. Only Caitlin was able to reach her long-term goal. Overall, all participants reported being more active and being more in better physical shape. And all participants reported that running will continue until they all reach their long-term goal, including Caitlin, who wants to reach it again. Overall, our data supported the results of the original study that found that goal setting and performance feedback increased running distance. There were several limitations to the study, the most important being the technical difficulties we faced with the Apple Watches. In the original study, they used a Nike Sport Band. We did not have that, so each participant had Apple Watches, and we faced technical issues, including Caitlin, who reported that her Apple Watch would record her run, but it would not collect the data and save it. Therefore, it limited our ability to verify the distance that she ran. The Apple company ended up sending her a new watch to help her complete this project. Another limitation was Apple Watch validity. So we, as participants, observed a change in how we ran in our running form. With the swinging of our arms would change the distance that we ran. Another limitation in the study was the variation in treadmills. Because we were in multiple gyms all across the nation, we used different gyms that were calibrated at different speeds and different points. So that could affect the speed that we were running at, which means we might not run and meet our definition of running, which was over 4 miles per hour. Throughout our study, we found it difficult to run 3 times a week. So that was one of the limitations, resulting in 2 participants having to move to the second intervention, not because they physically could not meet their goals, but they were unable to reach the amount of times that they ran. We also had a lack of time to reach our goals. So besides Caitlin, 6 weeks of intervention did not allow us to reach our goals, which ranged anywhere between 8 miles to 13 miles. We also were a group of early 20s females who were moderately active. So diversifying this study might show that goal setting has a harder time or helps a wider variety of participants. There was also a lack of maintenance data. While each of us said that we would continue running until our long-term goal was hit, we are not continuing to share our Apple workouts with each other. So we could adjust this through different future suggestions when we do the study again. So Apple Watches need to be calibrated for 20 minutes before you run your first workout. This should have been done at the beginning of our study, especially if we had never used the application before. We could also record video and form of us running to make sure that the way our arms move when we run is consistent across all distances. Another future suggestion would be to work out in the same gyms. So whether it was a Princeton club or an Anytime Fitness that was across the nation. So hopefully treadmill brands were more consistent. We would also lower the goals from 2 times a week to, or from 3 times a week to 2 times a week. And we would increase the amount of the length of the intervention from 6 weeks to possibly 12 or 14, like the original study. And then we would also want to diversify the participant group to include males and people that were more physically active and less physically active than us 5. And then we would also do a maintenance check-in to make sure that each others were continuing to run at a consistent rate. So overall, we wanted to conclude that we found it beneficial to have goal setting feedback work for all of us. And we found that our running distance increased and our physical fitness increased.
So now we are going to share some personal experiences and our goals for the future.
So, but like I said earlier, before I did this study, I did not run. I always wanted to and was never really had the motivation to do so. After completing the study, I realized that even though I didn't necessarily think it would work to set goals and to maintain my running and everything, I found that it really did, and it was accountable, knowing that I had my peers checking in and kind of seeing if I'm making goals or not. So I decided to kind of bring this into my everyday life and started a group chat with some of my other friends that I talk to on a regular basis with that have also wanted to start working out a little bit more. And we text each other every time we go to the gym. So we set basic goals at the beginning of the week of I'm going to go these 3 days or these 4 days, something like that, and then are able to keep each other accountable, as well as being aware that kind of it's written down and set in stone, then we can't necessarily back out of it. So this study has definitely taught me that goal setting has really, it works, as much as I didn't necessarily believe it prior to doing it. So in the future, my goal is more so related to working out, being able to run. My original goal of 8 miles is my long term. I'm not sure how long that will take. It's going to be based on how quickly I increase my distance. And as Jamie was saying, if we had a little bit of a longer study, I think the rest of us would have reached our goals. But because it was unrealistic. So in the future, I hope to keep using goal setting to increase my running distance.
Okay, so for me, as someone who works full-time and who goes to school, I've had a really hard time making time to go to the gym and work out. But with this study, I really enjoyed it because it gave me more accountability to myself and also the members of this group. And as I was researching the benefits of working out and physical activities, it really made me realize that it is important and I should make it a priority. And so as in the future for me, I want to continue with this, with these goal settings as I go to the gym and as I run. And I have made groups with my friends at work, and we've had competitions, and it's really kind of created for me a different lifestyle. And I hope that I can continue that and reach my long-term goal of 8 miles.
So I reached my long-term goal, but I ended up slacking off during the study. So I think maybe I'm going to continue running, and I'm going to, I work full time and I go to school full time. So it's kind of hard to make time, but I feel better when I run and work out. So having goal settings and the accountability to do it, it was very helpful. So even though I didn't meet my goal each week, I was able to still get something in, which kind of helped me see that I do have time. So I feel like for future, I'm not going to run on a treadmill because I found out that it was super boring for me. I absolutely did not like it. So I think I'm going to try running outside for the future, and maybe like the scenery will help me continue running, and I'll want to do it more.
So although I didn't reach all my goals during this project, it definitely did increase my running distance. And before this project, I wasn't really a runner, but I definitely having to do a project and having goal setting with a group of other people who were doing the same thing really motivated me to go to the gym. So I'm definitely going to be taking a partner along with me to keep me motivated, keep me going. And I do want to stick to my long-term goal, which is 8 miles as well. And hopefully that will go well.
My long-term goal was actually to run a half marathon, so 13 miles. I've never been able to run over a mile, so this project has been really helpful for me. I'm a very competitive person, so I liked the goal setting aspect. I've actually continued running consistently and kept goals in a separate tracker that I'm making sure that I'm progressing. And I signed up for my first half marathon in November. So I'm hoping that that'll motivate me to continue the increase that I have and to increase this the length of time that I've been running. But overall, I have found that this study has been very helpful in terms of running and being more physically active. As everyone had mentioned, we all work full time, and I have multiple jobs, so I found it hard, but I definitely found a benefit to running as much as I did, and I'm very grateful.